What do you have to say about justice?
The word justice is a big word which without the law cannot stand itself. Justice in this country is affected by the political environment around.
How easy or difficult is it for an ordinary Ugandan to attain justice in Uganda?
When you go deep at the level of an ordinary person, you find there are injustices there. You find a person uses money, a person uses power to sabotage the interests of a common person. In reality is that they are also paid, but when they reach there, they sabotage those policies which would be good for the government. The policies are good from the government, even the services are delivered from the government, but they reach midway. They don't reach the ordinary person. They stop along the way where we need to clean. We need to cleanse that point where those services stop without reaching that point.
Yes, once again, I welcome you back to the Bridge Talk Show where stories meet. And my name is Derek Tumwebaze, together with
Tarema Victor, the Bridge Talk Show.
today we have a very special guest with us. Someone from the legal field, someone from the writing field, and also from the political field. Let him introduce himself in a few so that you can get to know who he is.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Victor and Mr. Derek. My name is Ainepran Major. I am a law student at Kampala International University. I am a Pan-Africanist, and in that line, I am the chapter president for Africa Kwetu Students Organization at Kampala International University. And as well, I am the coordinator for CCG, which is a Center for Constitutional Affairs and Governance of the country at KIU. And I hold other ordinary positions in the university and outside the university. I am indeed happy to be hosted this very afternoon at the Bridge Talk Show. Thank you so much.
We are as well much more humbled to have you on the talk show, and your profile definitely makes you the right person for us to engage and discuss with this afternoon. When it comes to the legal sector in the country, specifically Uganda, where we are residing, we have seen the legal system evolving time after time. And today specifically, we would love to concentrate on justice, because you have seen the levels of justice being up and down according to the person they are handling. What do you have to say about justice?
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Victor. The word justice is a big word which without the law cannot stand itself. So justice goes in hand with the law, and currently in Uganda, in the status quo, I can say justice is provided to some instances, and to some other instances it is not provided, in a way that I will maybe dive this into judiciary, more of judiciary, because legislature is meant to make the laws and judiciary is meant to execute the laws. So without one of the two, then one becomes sick in the country. So justice, while to provide justice, we must follow the laws. And when you find in front of the arms the law is silent, then it's always difficult to achieve justice. So in such a way that justice in the country is, if I can relate to the status quo, justice in this country is affected by the political environment around, where you find even the executive, which is meant to implement the policies of the government, needs also to interject within the judiciary, which becomes a problem and which affects justice on the other way around. Then we also need to know that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice anywhere. So justice is something which is way round, in a way that it also depicts the instance about morality. If we are to go around justice, then we must also make sure we are morally active and upright. Because once a person is morally inactive and morally the part of the moral is not there, then we cannot achieve justice. So as of what we are doing in the country, justice is mostly affected by corruption, poverty, sectarianism, and such instances, whereby where there is corruption, you expect there to be an injustice. Injustice comes in where something, or where a person is favored than the other person, which is not as per the regards of the law. Then when we use the law, we also realize that as per the constitution, many of the institutions in Uganda are not working as per the laws, which comes into an injustice. I think as per the question asked to me, currently in the country, justice is halfway to what we need, and we are the ones to execute it, especially when it comes to the courts of the laws. If you deny someone a quick trial, then that is an injustice. Delayed justice, delayed trial is also an injustice. So we need to also look at how we execute the laws. When the laws are right, the way we execute them, and the way we also conclude what they are supposed to be doing. I think I now come back to you, Mr. Victor and Mr. Derek.
Thank you for that very wonderful insight. Yeah, so to be more specific, where do you think the weakness is lying? Because laws have been enacted, there have been enough reforms time after time, but justice here in Uganda has failed to be achieved. Who exactly is to blame? Are we the people? Is it the people? Is it the government? Are they the lawyers themselves? Who exactly should be blamed?
Right. Thank you so much for such a good question. The question you're asking, who is to blame? We are all to blame. Because you realize the government is for the people, by the people, and to the people.
It used to be for the people.
Yes, but I want us to remove that mindset from ourselves. We have a tendency of always asking what the country has done to us without looking at what we have done to the country. Because I know, yes, many will say we have rampant corruption in the country, which is affecting justice, and which when we dig deep, we find we have self-centered leaders who are not doing what the electorates need. And then the question comes back to us: what have we done? It's true that we are the ones who elect those members of parliament who go there. Because when we have a weak parliament, then the laws must be silent. If the parliament is silent, definitely the laws must be silent. And the judiciary comes also to a point of weakness. So we also have the part we play, especially in voting for the right members of parliament, because the laws are made by the parliament according to Article 77, 78, and 79 of the Constitution. So if we have the right laws in the country, and we have the right organ of the country which is executing the right laws of the country, we wouldn't be having an issue with justice. Then also, they say before
are you trying
you
to say
proceed,
that we have the wrong ones?
no, before you proceed, I was still deriving the point home. When the fish actually lots from the head. So still, when we have weaknesses in the executive, trust me, the laws, we cannot have justice, because we shall always be compromised by especially the forces in the country. And in front of the arms, the law is always silent. So we find justice is affected by many aspects. So we inclusive, the institution is inclusive, especially the judiciary. Because we will realize if we do not have separation of powers in the country, we can not have justice in the country. We must have independence of the judiciary if we are to have justice in the courts of the laws. But if you find the justice is in the courts of the law, first ask the executive on which order to take and which ruling to make, then we can never have justice as we require to have. I think I have answered your question.
Sure.
Well, Major,
Yes, please.
we are hearing a lot of cry from the ordinary Ugandans. I want us to look at it objectively, on the scope of the ordinary Ugandans. My question is simple. How easy or difficult is it for an ordinary Ugandan to attain justice in Uganda?
For the unprivileged, maybe if we can take it into that direction.
Okay, yes, for the ordinary person, because when we talk of ordinary person, we mean these people who do not have power, who are subjected to injustices. I think that those are the people we now
Said it well.
Yes.
Those that are subjected to injustices.
So the problem, we need to always first dig deep to find where the disease is before giving out a drug. So in this case, we need to realize where the problem is before we look for the solution. But when we rush to look for the solution when we haven't gotten the problem, then itself will again create another problem. So we realize that the injustices we have in the country mostly because we do not have separation of powers in the country. And when you go deep at the level of an ordinary person, let's say at the village level or at the local council level, you find even there are injustices there. You find a person uses money, a person uses wealth, a person uses power to sabotage the interests of a common person. And we can do that if we sing in unison, if we cooperate, and we have the same voice. Which I think, if we are to dig deep in the country now, you will find when we have different voices in one nation, which comes to actually raise the issue of impunity in the country. So the ordinary person, we need to again unite. We request and we fight for what we call a fundamental change. It is difficult nowadays. You go somewhere and you find people yearning for change. I think now we shouldn't be yearning for change. No, we have had enough of change. We should now be fighting for a fundamental change, which a fundamental change must come in with a positive change, where now the common person needs to raise a voice and the voice can be heard, where now people can be treated as they are supposed to be treated. This is where an instance you find I was personally doing a benchmark about PDM. I went to one of the districts in the Kigezo region, and people told me they were getting 860,000 instead of 1 million. So when I asked them, they said we could pay those guys their transport, their time. Then why then the government creates such when they cannot pay the people responsible to execute those? But in reality is that they are also paid, but when they reach there, they sabotage those policies which would be good for the government. So we at the local council, why can't we unite and we raise one voice? We say, yes, we know you are paid, you get a salary. Why are you doing this? It's because we have developed that inferiority complex in ourselves that we cannot fight for what belongs to us. But if we all stood up like General Museveni stood up and the 26 others, and they fought for the revolution of the country, it's now what we need back. Because we realize we have many people in the government, the mafias, who sabotage the services which could be going deep into the common people, the ordinary people, but they do not access them. The issue is not, many of the times you find the policies are good from the government, even the services are delivered from the government, but they reach midway, they don't reach the ordinary person. They stop along the way where we need to cleanse that point where those services stop without reaching the ordinary person. Those which try to reach the ordinary person, you find they reach halfway also. If it was supposed to be 100%, only 40% reaches the ordinary person. And also, when they complain, their voices are not heard. Why? Because again, the issue of poverty, the issue of corruption sabotages all that would be good for the country. That's how I think we need to deal up with it.
When it comes to corruption, we have seen a lot of campaigns, marches to the parliament. Why haven't those marches been effective? Because it has always been under a unison where very many youth always come together to fight for a common goal. But all these campaigns have been rendered nothing. Their voice have often not been heard. Where is the problem?
All right, those matches to parliament, especially about corruption. Corruption is something which is big, which we shouldn't only see to the level of marching on roads, to the level of marching to the house, because our house actually is innocent. But the people who sit there, you realize you're marching to parliament, yes. But the people who are corrupt are not even there. They have already moved out or they are inside chilling. So we need to do much more than marching to parliament.
Don't you think it is even the people that are marching that are corrupt themselves?
Exactly. Because especially the last year when it happened, I later saw that other people again bribed to get those who were arrested from the prisons. But they are the very people who had marched to parliament to fight corruption. Others who had tried, those who were so much aggressive about the issue, were again paid not to march to parliament. So you see, corruption is fighting everyone around. As they fight corruption, corruption is also fighting back. So we need to actually find out the reason why and then attain a verdict of how we should be doing things. But you realize if we are to fight corruption, then we must all raise the siege of fighting corruption. The people in the judiciary should do what they are supposed to do. If it is the law, let the law be the law. No person should be above the law. Whether you are from which district, whether you are from which tribe, let the law remain the law. If you are a police officer or you are a security officer, let the law be the law. While executing the law, you shouldn't also create another problem.
Major, you're talking about the law.
Yes,
And you're talking about no one being above the law.
yes,
But you may find out, you may find that in our country, it is most of the ordinary people are denied of justice just because they are ignorant about the law. What do you think is the best way, or is the best method that can be used to sensitize or to teach the ordinary people, or even all Ugandans, on how the law operates so that they can defend themselves legally and fight for their justice?
All right. I think it's also an injustice that these people have not had a chance to get sensitization about the laws. We need to also take that initiative to make sure even the ordinary person can know the laws and how the laws should govern the country. And also look at even when you know the law, but you do not have where to report. Because you know when I report there, I will not get justice. So it will also be useless when we know the law, but we do not have justice. So it also goes hand in hand. We should sensitize the people about the law. Every Ugandan has the right to know the law and actually to execute the law as it should be. So if we know that here when you do this, you will face the law, a person shouldn't be doing that. But because many people do not know it, they also later fall culprits when they shouldn't have done so. So it is also much better when they get to know the law, which is so good. We have televisions, we have radios. I urge the government to take the initiative at least to put up programs to teach, sensitize and advocate for knowing the law in and outside the country. Thank you.
It has been on research that one of the key reasons as to why we have been having the high level of injustices, it's because the lawyers are now becoming expensive. For an ordinary person to successfully go to court, to successfully get themselves a lawyer, it becomes very, very difficult for them. How does such a person get justice legally?
Okay. For that issue, it depends in which court, because even in courts we have what we call ADR, alternative dispute resolution, where you can actually harmonize on your issues without the interjection of a lawyer. You can say, me Victor, I have this case, me Derek, I have this case. You go outside the court, you agree. Then maybe to an instance where you guys fail to agree, that's how now a lawyer comes in. But remember that also the money given to lawyers is subjected to the weight of the case. You can't have a case of a hen or a goat and a lawyer requests for $1 million. So it is also under the code of conduct of lawyers and how the ethics, how they should do it. We have the rules also governing that. So I think it also comes back to the legal fraternity.
Major, on an event where we have seen so many cases on local villages where we have the ordinary people having very large plots of land, and you find that over time the privileged or the more wealthier people are trying to maybe steal and encroach on such plots of land. You find that the ordinary person lacks the capacity to confront him first through achieving the lawyer, because that's not a case that can be handled without a lawyer. How does such a person access justice?
Okay, thank you for that question. We need, back to what you were advising, we need to sensitize the people at the village level the laws and how the laws are into action. Because you will realize many people at the village level do not know laws of the lands. So you find a person has land but has no land title. Now it becomes difficult for that person. In any case, a person claims the land, and maybe that person has not been using the land over years, because we have provisions. If a person uses your land for over 12 years and there is no claim that is on the land, no one has complained, the person legally takes the land. So they need people on the grassroots need to know those laws. Then also, I think it is I blame the chairpersons and the leaders at the local level, because the person shouldn't come from somewhere and take someone's land when the purchase agreement of the land says the land belongs to Derek, but someone has come from there and says the land is mine. Over the years, Derek has been using the land. So it is also a blame to the leaders at the local level that they should be so much vigilant, because we are now at ease that many people are grabbing land, maybe especially those with no interest in the land. Then we also need to let people know how interests are, especially in laws governing the land, because we have those with legal interests and we have those with equitable interests. So we also advocate that people should apply for land titles, because when you have a land title, that is the first security of your land. But when you do not have a title of the land, it means then at any time a person can quickly process the land title and become the legal owner of the land. But the issues of saying this land was given to me by my grandfather, your grandfather is not there, and the maybe even the purchase agreement was stolen. So in that instance, a person is able to claim the land that doesn't belong to him or her. So technically, we also need to act ourselves within our means and process those land titles to avoid issues of having disagreements over here and there.
Well, the way you've explained that really shows how crucial the ordinary people, all the natives of the country need to know the law. Well, let me give you this simple question: if you were given the power to change one law in Uganda, if you were given the power to change one law in Uganda, it could be in the constitution or whatever law it could be, what could it be and why would it be that law?
All right, thank you so much. I don't think I might be able to answer the question, because I presume I cannot acquire that power. And if given, maybe if I am to say, I could make sure the powers are in the hands of the people, because in an instance that I'm deciding for the country, I cannot decide for the whole country. It is instead to make sure the powers are in the hands of the people as per the constitution of the country.
Wow, thank you so much. Let's look at your side of the authoring. What motivates you to author, and who motivates you?
Before maybe he will go into that sector, I would love him to tackle on democracy when it comes to the country. Do you think we have democracy? The high levels of youth that are engaging into the politics, yet democracy hasn't been achieved. Do you think there is a voice?
All right, thank you so much for the question. Let me begin with the young people. It is important to differentiate between ideology and biology, as some time back the president, His Excellency Museveni, had uttered it out. If I am young, it doesn't mean that I do not have the capacity to lead, depending on the ideology I have. And to the democracy of this country, it is sabotaged by different issues. One, in achieving democracy of the country, you cannot achieve democracy of the country when you do not have independence of the judiciary. In an instance where we have the separation of powers and checks and balances, where you find it is the president who appoints the chairman electoral commission, then we do not expect a lot much different from the interests of the person who appoints, because you realize the appointed person works to fulfill the interests of the person who appointed him or her. Then when I come to ask the voters, there is now much increase in the commercialized politics of the country. You find we are rushing to vote people because they are giving us t-shirts, they are giving us money, they are giving us soap, they are giving us salt, which is actually a very big dangerous thing to the country. It's actually a hazard to the country, because you realize if a person has given you money, you have sold your vote. And when you sell your vote, you have sold the rest of the 5 years. You will not claim for services because you sold your vote. So we realize even the democracy we are saying we do not have, we ourselves, we are also adding an injury to an insult. Instead of curbing it down, we are also allowing commercialized politics to increase in the country. And when it increases, later on we shall find we have a parliament, we have a good house full of people who have the money but do not have the manifesto to fulfill, because they just bought the votes. And we shall not be able to claim for our services because they gave us money at the time, which becomes dangerous. You realize and ask yourself, if a person has given you salt, has given you that what you want at the moment, why hasn't that person been bringing it before? Why is that person bringing it at the very time when the person needs a vote? It means when you send that person into the parliament, that person will work hard to get what he gave you. If he gave you money, he sold his vehicle, he sold his building, he's not stupid. He also has to look for money to actually buy a new building, buy another car. That's how those MPs who end up putting a lot of money in politics, when they reach back to parliament and they do not get that money back, they develop wrong hands. They start embezzling the government funds because they wasted a lot of money during a time of elections. I think the problem here, the government made the parliament more attractive. Now every person in the country is yearning to become an MP. They made it more attractive. It now shifted from the side of passionate service to the side of business. People go to parliament to do business, to get gigs and execute their own businesses, not to come to the grassroots and implement their manifestos. That's how we end up having a good country, but democratically less. And we have a journey to move. We have all to do what we are supposed to do. We as electorates, if a person brings the money, it's okay. You can eat that money. But we are not in the market of Nakasero that we have to be bought like hens, chicken, and matoke. We are not really in the market. You realize the age you have, what you have, and the person is buying you like a goat, like a hen, like a cow. Not really. We need to rise up and say, no, enough is enough. We must have a leader, not having a person coming to do business here. People coming with propaganda, telling us the other one is bad. We are not interested in who is bad. We are interested in what you are going to do for the people. And we have gotten another challenge whereby now we have lost trust in the institutions because of corruption. But again, we even see the people who are opposing them, they are much involved in corruption. So you find even now a person who is more corrupt runs to opposition to hide behind the opposition. So we need to also be so much careful. Don't vote a person because the person subscribes to a political party. Vote a person according to what he or she is telling you, according to what he has been doing. You know a person has been involved in cases of corruption, but you again insist and you vote the same person because he or she has given you money. Then we are subjecting our country to more oppression, more corrupt cases, and which shall affect our children. Because you realize if a person gives you money and does not work on the Lord, you don't know, your father can get an accident and die. Your children later on will be driving, they will get accidents and die. But if you looked for a good leader, the road could be good. So democracy is something big which we all need to have a big lens, especially in this critical period of elections where people are bringing money, people are bringing salt. And you ask yourself, you have taken 5 years. Haven't you been eating? Someone is bringing sort of 500. Haven't you been bathing? Someone is bringing a bar of soap. And you again waste more 5 years because of one bar of soap, because of a t-shirt, because someone has given you a t-shirt. You fail to look in the future. You just base on what you have received at the moment. In this light, I advocate for generational thinking. I think I put it right in my book, The Winds of Change, We need to reason as generational thinkers. Do not look on what is happening right now. Also plan ahead of you. This is why the whites from Europe, they are much more better than us, because for them, they plan ahead of them. But for us, we want to plan today in the morning. You wake up and you want to get a plan for that day. Yet others have plans for the next 40 years. So we need to also reason as generational thinkers. If you are in a line of food, do not serve according to the demand of your stomach. Look behind. See the food available and look behind the number of people who are in the line. Also realize that they also need to eat. Do not eat the food there and you forget that there are people behind you. So in this case, we also need to see the generation that is going to come. What will they find on table? How will they find the country? When you are lobbying, when you are stealing, when you are embezzling, have that keen lens. Ask yourself, where am I leaving my country? Where am I leaving my constituents? Where am I leaving my district? Where will the people who will come later go? What will they find there? Am I leaving a legacy to them? We have people who left legacies in the world, in Africa. The Nelson Mandelas, they left what they could. But you realize nowadays the leaders we have, they want to even take what they found there, which is actually so bad and destructive to our own nation. Thank you so much for your question.
And to our dear listeners and the citizens of the nation as well, we have heard from the very best, an expert in law, an advocate, and it is time for us to rise. It's time for us to recognize where we have been going wrong. It is time for us to rise and become generational thinkers, as he has stated it. The time is now. Don't forget, you're watching The Bridge Talk Show. Well, as we continue with the discussion, I believe you're an author, yeah, and would love maybe to hear a brief story on the path you've taken, or you decided to take some years back.
All right, thank you so much. The Winds of Change is my second book after A New Uganda, which I wrote with Mr. Onesimus and Mr. Thomas. So this comes in as my second masterpiece, and I got inspired by many things, especially when I see all that happening in Uganda and in Africa. I said, I cannot stand and speak it all, but I can write it and at least leave it for even the people who will come to find it and read it and at least execute what I will have failed to do. So having realized in my book, The Winds of Change, I have different chapters. Some of them are about Pan-Africanism, patriotism, and nationalism. Coming back to the country, I realized that however much we are pushing for the integration of East African countries and for the unification of Africa, we cannot rush to unify Africa when we as Ugandans, we are not one nation. You realize when you're a Western and you go to the Northern and you ask for food, a person may slap you thinking you are abusing that person. Why? Because one, we speak different languages. We are the same, we hail from the same country, but we hate each other because of the lines which were drawn by whites. Imagine just a line that was drawn by a white. There is an instance where we had an MP who was from a Ugandan family in DRC. We had an MP in Uganda and the PM was a brother in DRC, the Prime Minister. So just because of the line that was drawn by whites, you find we are having a lot of wrangles. So having realized all that, I said, I kept writing. It was not something that I did for in a short period of time. I did it for years. I kept writing whenever I could get more incidences and more instances. I could include them in the book. Then I also hint about the chapter of mindset. I realized we have a lot to move. Even where we hail from, what we do, and where we are heading. You know, we have always had a chance to live in the present. We may not be able to change the past, but we can use the present to change the future and to predict the future, definitely. So you find if we do not adjust our attitudes and our mindset changes, we may fail to cope up with the future. Other countries are rushing for transformation, are rushing for growth, but for us, you find we have different challenges which sabotage our growth and our development. You find in Uganda, we have instances where, for us, in other countries, they discuss ideas. But unfortunately, here in Uganda, we discuss events and people. You find when there was a party yesterday, today is for telling stories about the party yesterday. You saw the other person, he was putting on a shabby suit, which do not help the future. You find we are talking about people, the other guy, I hate him, which does not build the future. Other countries, they do not have time to discuss people, to discuss events. They definitely discuss ideas. When they meet, whether in a bar or elsewhere they meet, they discuss ideas. But for us here in the country, here in Africa, our minds are still locked. We want to discuss events, we want to discuss people. Now we are in the period of elections. You go everywhere, they are discussing about people who are contesting. But how about when we spend a lot of time discussing about people and we fail to realize we need that creativity, innovation for the country to push, to move on? Then I also hint about the chapter of transformation. You realize that people who were there before us, they had minds of transformation. The Nelson Mandela, they used what they had to transform Africa. But for us, we have better resources. However much we have failed to use the resources we have to transform ourselves and the country. The Nelson Mandelas in their era, we didn't have these microphones. We didn't have definitely these good phones we have. It was difficult for them to communicate with the whole world. But here right now, I can send a message to a person in Europe, meaning it is easy for us to communicate within the whole world, which wasn't there by then. But we are using our social media, the WhatsApps, to abuse our fellows, to abuse the leaders, to abuse whoever we can see. So we are not putting them at the right use. However, others are using them for research, for creativity. Others are using them to critique, to politic, and to abuse people. So having internalized all that, I sat and said, let me compose myself and write much about this. At least we can base on this to change the future if we cannot go back to change the past.
So basically, what you want to mean for us to get the Uganda we want, for a change to happen, we ourselves should change.
Exactly. We have to change our attitudes and our minds if we want change. And the change we should be demanding for now is not the change, because even right now change is happening.
That is true.
We need a fundamental change.
A fundamental change.
It shouldn't be merely a change of facts. No, it should be a fundamental change. We should be moving from something to something better, not from the better to the worst.
What do you think is the way forward for us to have a fundamental change?
The way forward, of course, our elders may not have the time now to change the status quo. It is just the young people. I do not expect definitely my father to have anything big to change in the country, because my father is aging. He's now in his 70s. He has lived his life. He changed what he could. So we need to also push ourselves, especially the young people. In Uganda, Uganda is one of the youngest countries. It is a country actually among countries with the youngest population. Uganda has a population of 70% who are youth, meaning it bases much on the youth, and we need to stand up and at least do what we are supposed to do. Let's use what we have to create other difficulties, to solve the difficulties we have met, and to create and open gates for the next generation, but not engaging and being used by our elders to abuse our friends, to sabotage policies of the government. Because you realize, even if it is a policy or a program that is from opposition, but it is benefiting the country, why should we have a problem with it? The problem is that we are demanding for freedom, we are demanding for equity, when we ourselves we cannot do that equity. You find we are claiming the freedom, but we are not claiming it under the law. You cannot claim for freedom when you are also insulting. So we need to also compose ourselves. I know when we stand up and we say no, since we have the largest population in the country, we can move on. We can create the change we need. And we also need to compose ourselves in a way that we need to sing in unison. We need to unify ourselves. Because you realize if we divide ourselves, then we must all lose. But if we unite, we can stand together and we march the same walk. So we as the young people, it is our responsibility to also stand and at least chase our dreams.
So, to our dear viewers, this is the Winds of Change that has a lot of insightful communication or information that is talking about. Briefly tell us about the Winds of Change. Is it yet published or launched yet? And if not yet launched, when is it being launched? And how can people get this book? In fact, because they need the information that is inside here.
All
A
right.
fundamental change.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. The book, The Winds of Change, will be launched on 22nd of February. That is actually this very Saturday at Habesha Lounge. It is in Kabaragara opposite Stanbic Bank along Gaba Road. So we shall be there from 1 p.m. and we shall be live streaming on MGD TV, on Africa Light, and other social media handles. That's when I will have a lot to talk about the book. And as of now, I thank God I at least got the copyright from the National Library, so it is now under security. And we shall have much of it on that very day of the 22nd of February. That will be Saturday. And I invite everyone. There is no entry fee. That's why I made it open for us to come and interact, see the panelists, analyze issues, because I shouldn't be putting sabotaging people to access it, because we all need this. It is our efforts. We all need this. And in that way, I want to also thank the people who are pushing, who are mobilizing for it. Let's be there on that day of Saturday. Otherwise, I want to thank you people, the Bridge Talk Show. I'm so much humbled. Thank you for hosting me. I pray and I at least pray that you continue doing the best out of this.
Yeah, sure.
Continue hosting people out of this. We shall have a fundamental change within you and ourselves. We can all do better if we cooperate. Otherwise, thank you so much, and may God bless you.